Everyone imagines the same Viking. A man emerging from the northern fog, wild hair tangled by wind, a heavy beard soaked with sweat, dirt beneath his fingernails, the smell of blood and smoke clinging to his skin. A savage, a barbarian, a symbol of everything uncivilized. This image has been repeated for centuries, in books, in films, in popular history. But what if this picture is wrong? What if the Vikings, the very people Europe feared, were actually among the cleanest societies of the medieval world? What if they bathed more often than kings, groomed themselves better than monks, and cared more about personal hygiene than most of their enemies? Because while medieval Europe feared water, the Vikings built bathhouses. While others avoided washing, the Norse made it routine. Today, we challenge one of history's most stubborn myths. In Old Norse, Saturday had a specific name: Laugardagur, bath day. This was not poetry, it was practice. Across Scandinavia, Vikings built wooden bathhouses near farms and settlements. Simple structures, heated with stones and hot water, designed to produce steam. Early saunas, practical, efficient, and common. Bathing was not a luxury reserved for elites. It was part of weekly life. Saturday was for washing the body. Sunday was for meeting others, clean, groomed, and presentable. Archaeological evidence confirms this. Remains of bathhouses have been found across Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland. Not rare discoveries, frequent ones. At the same time, much of medieval Europe viewed bathing with suspicion. Water was believed to open the pores. Open pores invited disease. Cleanliness was considered dangerous. The Vikings believed the opposite. To them, neglecting the body was a sign of weakness. Cleanliness meant discipline, and discipline meant honor. Vikings did not stop at bathing. They groomed, carefully and consistently. Almost every Viking settlement contains combs made from bone or antler. These were not luxury items. They were everyday tools. Men combed their hair daily. They trimmed and shaped their beards. They cleaned their nails using small personal instruments carried on the belt. Written accounts from England describe Vikings as unusually concerned with their appearance. They washed their faces every morning. They changed clothes regularly. They used oils to protect hair and skin from cold, wind, and salt. Even cosmetics were part of Norse life. Charcoal was used to darken the eyes. Natural pigments were applied to the skin. Animal fats mixed with herbs helped prevent cracking and damage from harsh climates. This was not vanity. In Viking society, appearance reflected self-control. A well-kept body showed respect for oneself and for others. And this created tension. Christian writers complained that Viking men were attracting local women, not through violence, but through cleanliness, confidence, and presence. Hygiene became influence. Hygiene in Viking society was not limited to men. Viking women were expected to be clean, groomed, and well-presented, not for decoration, but for status. Archaeology reveals tweezers, mirrors, cosmetic containers, and grooming tools in female graves across Scandinavia. These objects were personal, intimate, used daily. Women washed regularly, brushed and styled their hair, and applied oils and herbal mixtures to protect skin from cold and wind. Cleanliness was part of dignity. Clothing was also carefully maintained. Garments were washed, repaired, and scented with herbs. A well-kept appearance reflected household discipline and social respect. Foreign observers noticed this. Some Christian writers described Viking women as dangerously attractive, not because of luxury, but because of confidence, cleanliness, and presence. In Norse culture, beauty was not passive. It was authority. A clean home, a clean body, a controlled appearance. These were signs of power. And this deeply unsettled medieval Europe, where neglect was often mistaken for piety. Among the Vikings, discipline was visible, on the body itself. For the Vikings, hygiene was not only about comfort, it was psychological. A clean, groomed warrior arriving from the sea was unsettling. Enemies expected monsters. They met men who looked controlled, prepared, and confident. Clean bodies signaled readiness, order, discipline. In battle, appearance mattered. A warrior who maintained his body was believed to maintain his weapons, his mind, and his honor. Dirt suggested neglect. Neglect suggested weakness. This stood in sharp contrast to much of medieval Europe, where suffering and physical discomfort were often praised as spiritual virtues. Filth was humility. Pain was devotion. The Vikings rejected this idea. They believed strength came from balance, body and mind aligned. This difference created fear. Christian observers struggled to understand a culture where cleanliness did not equal decadence, but control, where bathing was not pleasure, but preparation. So Viking hygiene became threatening, not because it was strange, but because it worked. And when enemies could not defeat a practice, they ridiculed it. Clean warriors were turned into dirty barbarians. Discipline was rewritten as savagery. Viking hygiene was also chemical. They did not rely on water alone. The Norse produced soap, made from animal fat and ash. A harsh mixture but effective. It cleaned skin. It removed grease. It even lightened hair. Blonde hair was admired in Viking culture, and soap was sometimes used deliberately for that purpose. Appearance mattered. Even color carried meaning. Scents were also important. Herbs such as juniper, thyme, and birch were used to scent clothes and bathing water. Not luxury perfumes, practical aromas that masked odor and repelled insects. In a cold climate, hygiene was adaptation. Oils protected skin from cracking. Cleanliness prevented infection. Regular washing reduced parasites. This was not excess. It was survival refined into routine. The Viking body was not neglected. It was maintained, carefully, deliberately, and consistently. So why do we still imagine Vikings as filthy barbarians? Because history is often written by enemies. Christian chroniclers viewed pagan culture as immoral and dangerous. They associated bathing with excess, grooming with temptation, cleanliness with corruption. To discredit the Vikings, they described them as animalistic, unwashed, uncontrolled, driven by instinct. But archaeology tells a different story. Bathhouses existed. Combs were everywhere. Personal hygiene was structured and normalized. The Vikings were not primitive. They followed a different model of civilization, one shaped by climate, practicality, and honor. While much of Europe feared water, the North embraced it. And the greatest myth is not how savage the Vikings were. It is how civilized they truly were.